My parents didn't forget my graduation. They didn't accidentally double book the date. They looked me straight in the eye and said, Rachel's wedding is on May 15th. For a second, I thought I heard them wrong because May 15th was circled in red on my calendar, the day I would finally walk across that stage after 8 brutal years of medical school. 8 years of sleepless nights, hospital rotations, and living off instant noodles while everyone else lived like life was easy. I swallowed hard. You know that's my graduation day. My mother didn't even blink. We know, but your sister already put down deposits. My dad's voice turned cold. Rachel always comes first, Emily. You'll always come last. The silence that followed tasted like metal. Then I smiled slowly. Fine, I said. They thought I was giving up. They had no idea I was about to take everything back. I didn't cry when they said it. That was the strangest part. I just sat there at my tiny kitchen table, staring at the cracked screen of my phone, watching my mother's last message glow like a sentence. Rachel's wedding. May 15th. The date sat in my stomach like a stone. I looked over at the wall calendar above my sink, the one I taped up 3 months ago, like a sacred promise. In thick red marker, I'd written, May 15th, med school graduation. I'd circled it so aggressively, the paper tore a little. That wasn't just a ceremony to me. That day was proof I survived. 8 years of medical school. 8 years of being exhausted. 8 years of holding my breath every time tuition was due and praying my credit card wouldn't decline at the grocery store. I was the first person in my family to get into medical school. The first to finish college at all. And the funny thing was, my parents loved bragging about it to strangers. Oh, our Emily, my dad would say at church, smiling like he'd personally delivered every lecture. She's in medical school. She's going to be a doctor. They'd beam like proud parents. But when it came to showing up, when it came to supporting me in any real way, they were always busy. Always distracted. Always pulled toward Rachel like she was the sun, and I was just background noise. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my coffee cup, cold, untouched. My fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something worse. Rage. Because this wasn't the first time. It was just the first time they said it out loud. When I was 19, I got my acceptance letter to pre-med. I remember running into our living room with the envelope shaking in my hands. Mom, I yelled. Dad. I got in. Rachel was on the couch, legs tucked underneath her, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. She glanced up long enough to roll her eyes. My mom clapped twice, slowly, like I'd performed a magic trick. That's wonderful, honey. My dad nodded without looking away from the TV. Good. Now you can get a real job someday. I stood there waiting for something, anything. A hug. Tears. We're proud. But the moment was already slipping away, disappearing into the carpet like spilled water. Then Rachel tossed her hair back dramatically and announced, I'm pregnant. The room exploded. My mom screamed like she won the lottery. My dad jumped up like the house was on fire. Suddenly, they were crying and hugging and calling relatives. And I was still holding my acceptance letter like it didn't matter. I remember my mom hugging Rachel and whispering, my baby is having a baby. I remember my dad grabbing his keys, shouting, we're getting cake. And I remember Rachel's eyes flicking toward me with that smug little smile she always had when she stole something from me. Not a toy, not clothes, not a boyfriend. Attention. Rachel and I were only 2 years apart, but she acted like she was the older sister by 10. She'd always been prettier in that effortless way that made adults soften when she spoke. Blonde curls, big eyes, the kind of smile that made teachers forgive her for things I would have been punished for. Rachel learned early that if she cried, people ran to her. I learned early that if I cried, people told me to stop being dramatic. So I stopped. And I worked. While Rachel was getting pregnant at 19, marrying her high school boyfriend, Todd, at a courthouse with a cheap bouquet. I was studying until my eyes burned. While Rachel complained about being so tired from raising a baby, I was scrubbing floors at a diner at 2 a.m. for tips. While she posted family photos online, like she was living the dream. I was eating ramen noodles with an unpaid electricity bill sitting on my counter. And still, my parents acted like Rachel was the one suffering. Rachel got sympathy. I got expectations. Rachel got excuses. I got lectures. Why are you always so serious, Emily? My mother would say. You need to loosen up. Smile more. Smile more. Like I wasn't carrying my entire future on my back. The first time I realized my parents truly didn't understand me was during my second year of medical school. I was on my 3rd straight week of rotations. I had dark circles so deep I looked like I belonged in a haunted house. My scrubs smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. I called home that night because I needed comfort. I didn't want money. I didn't want them to fix anything. I just wanted to hear someone tell me I wasn't crazy for doing this. My mom answered, chewing. Hi, sweetie, she said casually. What's up? I'm struggling, I admitted, voice cracking. It's a lot. There was a pause. Then, she sighed like I'd inconvenienced her. Well, honey, you chose this. No one forced you. My throat tightened. I know. I just wanted to talk. She laughed softly. You know what would make you less stressed? If you had a man. Rachel's husband is taking her on a weekend trip. You should find someone who takes care of you like that. My fingers clenched around the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Mom, I don't have time to date. I'm in medical school. Exactly, she said brightly. That's why Rachel is smarter. She built a family. You built whatever this is. Whatever this is. 8 years of sacrifice. Whatever this is. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My lungs felt tight like I'd been punched. And then my dad's voice boomed in the background. Tell her Rachel needs help with the kids on Saturday. I heard my mom cover the phone and say, Rachel needs help on Saturday. You can fly in, right? She's overwhelmed. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was so predictable, it was almost pathetic. Mom, I said slowly. I'm in the middle of exams. I can't just fly in. She's your sister, she snapped. Family comes first. Family comes first. Only when it came to Rachel. And now they were trying to bury my graduation under Rachel's wedding like my entire life was just a minor inconvenience. I pressed my palms to my eyes, breathing hard. Then I stood up and walked to the calendar. I stared at that date again. May 15th. My graduation day. The day I'd been crawling toward for nearly a decade. I had already bought my parents' plane tickets, real ones, not cheap flights with ridiculous layovers. I'd spent money I didn't have because I wanted to surprise them. I wanted them there. I wanted that picture, me in my gown, them smiling beside me like a normal family. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would finally be different. But clearly, I was still the same Emily. The invisible one. The responsible one. The one who would understand. The one who would swallow the disappointment and clap for Rachel. My phone buzzed again. A call. Rachel. I didn't answer at first. Then it buzzed again. And again. Finally, I picked up, holding the phone away from my ear. Because I already knew. Rachel didn't call unless she wanted something. Emily, she screeched immediately. Oh my God. It's happening. I waited. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't mention my graduation. She just kept going, voice drenched in excitement. We're doing it for real. The big wedding. The one I deserve. The one you deserve. I repeated flatly. Yes, she said, completely oblivious to my tone. And Mom and Dad are helping. Like a lot. Mom is literally crying because she's so happy for me. I swallowed. Hard. So they told you, I said quietly, about my graduation date. Rachel paused for half a second, just long enough to prove she knew exactly what she was doing. Then she laughed. Oh my God, Emily. You're still on that. Still on that. Like my graduation was a parking ticket. Rachel, I said, my voice sharpening. That day is my medical school graduation. I told everyone months ago. So, she snapped. It's just a ceremony. Just a ceremony. The words hit like boiling water. Just a ceremony. I repeated slowly. Yes, she said like she was explaining basic math to a child. My wedding is once in a lifetime. I felt my jaw clench. What about your first wedding? I asked. Silence. Then, you're such a jealous little freak, she hissed. You always have been. Jealous. That word always made me want to scream. Because I wasn't jealous of Rachel's life. I wasn't jealous of her marriage. Or her kids. Or her cheap social media smiles. What I wanted, what I had always wanted, was simple. To be seen. To be clear, I said, voice low. I'm not jealous. I'm disappointed. Rachel scoffed. Oh, please. You just want everyone to pay attention to you. You always need to be special. My nails dug into my palm. Rachel. You're not going to ruin this for me, she interrupted. Mom already booked the venue. Dad already called Todd's parents. Deposits are paid. So you planned all of this, I said softly, knowing it was my day. She didn't deny it. She just said colder now. Well, guess what? You don't get to be the star this time. My throat tightened. I'm graduating medical school. I don't care, she said casually. I have 3 kids. You know what that's like? Being exhausted all the time? You think you're the only one who works hard. I almost laughed again. Because Rachel thought exhaustion was waking up at 10 a.m. and driving carpool. I was pulling 36-hour shifts in the hospital. I was watching people die. I was saving lives. And Rachel wanted flowers and a spotlight. I'm hanging up, I said. Fine, she snapped. Go save lives or whatever. But don't expect anyone to care. She hung up first. I stared at my phone screen for a long moment. Then I stood there in my kitchen, the quiet wrapping around me like a blanket. This was the moment I realized something that changed everything. Rachel wasn't the problem. Not really. Rachel was just a symptom. The real problem was my parents. They didn't fall for Rachel's manipulation. They weren't caught in the middle. They weren't victims. They were choosing. They always had. And this time, they had finally said it out loud. Rachel comes first. You come last. I walked back to the table and opened my laptop.
Not to cry.
Not to beg. Not to write a dramatic post. I opened my contacts list. I cracked my knuckles. And I started making calls. Because if they wanted me to come last, then fine. I'd stop chasing their love. And I'd build something so big, so undeniable. They'd never be able to ignore me again. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was studying, although that was what I'd trained my body to do for 8 years. No, this time my brain wouldn't shut up because every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's voice again. Rachel always comes first. I sat on the edge of my bed in the dark, staring at my graduation gown, hanging on the closet door like a ghost of my future. The blue fabric looked expensive under the moonlight, and it should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like proof. Proof that even if I became a doctor, even if I saved lives, even if I did everything right, I would still never be enough for them. At 3:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Can we talk tomorrow? That was it.
No hay paleti.
No, are you okay? No, I didn't mean it.
Just can we talk?
Like I was a coworker who'd misunderstood a meeting time. I stared at it until my eyes burned, then typed back.
Sure.
One word. That's all they deserved. The next afternoon, my parents called on speakerphone. I didn't even bother to step into another room. If they were going to tear my heart out again, I wanted to hear the sound of my own apartment around me, so I'd remember I had a life outside them. My mother spoke first. Emily, she said in that soft voice she used when she wanted to sound reasonable, we're worried you're taking this too personally. I blinked slowly. Too personally, I repeated. Yes, she continued quickly. Rachel is just excited. And you know how she gets. She didn't mean to hurt you. I let out a short laugh.
Oh.
So, she didn't mean it when she said she didn't care about my graduation? Mom sighed, already irritated. Honey, you have to understand, Rachel already made arrangements. Deposits were paid. Invitations were ordered. And my graduation date was announced months ago, I said sharply. My father jumped in, voice heavy with authority. Emily, stop. You're making this bigger than it needs to be. My teeth clenched. Bigger? I whispered. I'm graduating medical school. Exactly, Dad snapped. You'll be a doctor either way, whether you walk across the stage or not. My throat went tight. I stared at my kitchen wall because if I stared at the phone, I might explode. So that's your solution, I said quietly. You want me to skip my graduation? Mom's voice turned sugary again. Nobody said skip. We just thought it would be easier if you didn't make a scene. You can get your diploma mailed. My hands began to shake. Not from fear, from humiliation. I had gone through blood and sweat and loneliness for this moment. I had dragged myself through 8 years of hell so that I could stand on that stage and tell my younger self, see, we made it. And my parents were offering me the option to receive it in the mail, like a late Amazon package. I swallowed hard. So you're going to her wedding? I said. Dad didn't even hesitate. Yes. The words slammed into my chest. Mom rushed to soften it. Honey, we're trying to support both daughters. You're not supporting both, I said, voice sharper now. You're supporting her. Again. Dad sighed like I was exhausting. Rachel needs us. And I don't. I snapped. A beat of silence. My mother spoke in a low voice, like she was delivering a truth she didn't think I could handle. Emily, Rachel is different. Different. That word made my stomach twist.
Different meant delicate.
Different meant needy. Different meant attention. Rachel was different in the way a screaming child at a restaurant is different. Everyone revolves around them just to keep them quiet. And then my father said it. The sentence that changed something inside me forever. Emily, he said slowly, like he was explaining the natural order of things, your sister always comes first. My lungs stopped. And you, he continued, you'll always come last. You're the strong one. You can handle it. There it was again. You can handle it. That phrase had been the excuse for every neglect, every disappointment, every time they chose Rachel. I could handle it so they didn't have to. I could handle it so they didn't feel guilty. I could handle it so Rachel could keep winning. I stared at my own reflection in the dark laptop screen, and I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest like a lock turning. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. I just said,
Fine.
Mom exhaled, relieved. Thank you, she said quickly, like she'd just won an argument.
See?
This is why you're the mature one. Dad grunted.
Good.
We knew you'd do the right thing. I almost laughed, because they had no idea what fine meant. I wasn't surrendering. I was detaching. I was cutting the cord. When I hung up, the apartment felt too quiet. I stood still for a long moment, then I walked to my fridge and pressed my forehead against the cold metal. And in that moment, I let myself feel it. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Betrayal. A deep, ugly betrayal. Because if my parents were standing in front of a burning building and both their daughters were trapped inside, they would run past me without hesitation. They would save Rachel first. And they would tell themselves they did nothing wrong. I took a shaky breath. Then I lifted my head. My eyes were dry. My hands were steady now, because I finally understood. They were never going to choose me, so I had to choose myself. I walked back to my laptop, sat down, and opened my contacts list. The names blurred at first, not because I was crying but because my vision had gone sharp in a dangerous way. I clicked on my aunt's number, then my uncle's, then my grandmother's. If my parents wanted to erase my graduation day, I would make it impossible to ignore. One call at a time. My aunt answered on the third ring. Oh my goodness. Emily, she squealed. How's my future doctor? My throat tightened unexpectedly at the warmth in her voice. I'm okay, I said softly. I wanted to tell you something. What is it? I glanced at my calendar again. May 15th. My day. I'm graduating, I said. Medical school. On May 15th. Her gasp cracked through the phone. Oh, sweetheart. That's incredible. I waited a beat. Then I added, carefully. It would mean a lot to me if you could be there. Of course, she said instantly. I wouldn't miss it. I hesitated, then said what I knew I had to say. Rachel is having her wedding on the same day. There was a pause. Then my aunt's voice dropped. She did what? She scheduled it on my graduation day, I said. And my parents are going to her wedding. Silence. Not the awkward kind. The dangerous kind. Then my aunt said, with a sharpness I'd never heard from her before. That girl has been selfish since she was 5. I'm coming to your graduation. I blinked. You are? Yes, she snapped. And I'm bringing your cousins. Let Rachel stand at the altar alone. This is your moment. I pressed my hand to my mouth because for the first time since the fight began, someone chose me without hesitation. Next was my Uncle James. He answered like he always did, straight to the point.
Hey, Eminencia.
Everything all right? I swallowed. I'm graduating, I said. Medical school. May 15th.
A beat.
Then I heard him smile through the phone. Finally, he said proudly. I'm coming. A lump formed in my throat. You don't even know the details yet. I don't need details, he replied. I need a seat and a camera. I laughed softly, the sound shaky. Then I told him about Rachel.
And my parents.
And the wedding date. His voice turned colder instantly. So, your parents are skipping your medical school graduation to watch your sister get married again? I didn't answer. Because the words sounded even worse out loud. Uncle James let out a slow breath. Listen to me, he said firmly. I helped you buy textbooks because I believed in you. I didn't invest in you just so your parents can treat you like an afterthought. My eyes stung. I'm coming, he repeated. And your grandma? She'll come too. When I called Grandma Margaret, she answered immediately, like she'd been waiting for my voice. Emily baby, she said warmly. How are you holding up? That was all it took. My composure cracked. Just a little. I'm trying, I whispered. And then, for the first time, I told someone the whole truth. Not the polished version. Not the strong version. The ugly version. I worked so hard, I said, voice breaking. I just wanted them to be there. For once. Grandma stayed silent for a moment. Then her voice sharpened like a blade. They're going to your sister's wedding, she said, not asking. Yes. And she planned it on your graduation day. Yes. There was another pause. And then she said, calmly, I'll be there. My breath hitched. I'll be in the front row, Grandma continued. And I want you to look at me when you walk across that stage, Emily. Because I want you to know at least one person in your family sees you. Tears filled my eyes, so suddenly I had to turn away from the window. Thank you, I whispered. But Grandma wasn't done. Her voice lowered. And Rachel, she added. And your parents? I swallowed. What about them? Grandma's tone was quiet, but it carried a promise. They're about to learn what happens, she said, when you keep treating a good child like she doesn't matter. When I hung up, my hands were shaking again. But this time it wasn't rage. It was something fierce and bright. Hope. I stared at the list of names still waiting in my phone. Aunts. Uncles. Cousins. Family friends. Even Todd's parents. I wiped my eyes.
Took a breath.
And I kept calling. Because my parents had made their choice. Now it was my turn. By the end of that week, my phone felt like it was on fire. Every time I opened it, there was another message. Another confirmation. Another person choosing me. Aunt Lisa texted. We're making a weekend trip out of it. Uncle James sent. Front row.
Don't argue.
My cousin Mia wrote. I'm bringing flowers and tissues. You earned this. I should have felt nothing but joy. But there was always the shadow behind it. This gnawing ache that my own parents weren't part of it. That the two people who were supposed to love me first were choosing to love me last. Still, I kept calling people. Because with every new yes, something inside me straightened. I wasn't begging anymore. I was building. 2 weeks before graduation, I was studying in the library when Delilah slid into the chair across from me with her iced coffee, and that look. The I know something look. What? I asked without looking up from my notes. Delilah raised an eyebrow. So, your sister is getting married on your graduation day? My pen froze. I slowly looked up.
Who told you that?
She tilted her phone toward me. There it was. A post. Rachel had uploaded a glossy engagement-style photo of herself and Todd. Rachel in a white dress, Todd in a suit, looking like a couple in a wedding magazine. And the caption read, Save the date. May 15th, the big day. Can't wait to celebrate love with all of you. Ring sparkles. I stared at it like it was a slap. She posted that? I whispered. Delilah leaned closer, voice low. She didn't just post it. She tagged half your family. My stomach twisted. Rachel wasn't just planning a wedding. She was declaring war. She wanted people to see it. To feel forced into choosing. To make me look petty if I said anything. Delilah watched my face carefully. Do you want me to comment? No, I said quickly. My voice surprised even me, calm, clipped. Delilah blinked. Emily, she's doing this on purpose. I know, I said. Then I looked back down at my textbook. Delilah's eyes narrowed. So, what are you going to do? I turned a page slowly. I'm going to let her, I said. And then I'm going to let her lose. That night, Rachel called. I didn't pick up. She called again. And again. By the 5th time, I answered. Only because I didn't want her leaving voicemails full of poison. What? I said. She started crying immediately. Not quiet crying. Not real crying. The dramatic kind Rachel performed like she was auditioning for a role. Emily, she sobbed, why are you doing this to me? I leaned back against my couch, staring at the ceiling. Doing what? I asked flatly. You know what, she wailed. Everyone is abandoning me. My guest list is shrinking. Mom is freaking out. Todd's mom won't even answer my calls. I said nothing. Rachel sucked in a breath, shifting tactics. People are saying awful things about me, she whispered dramatically. They're calling me selfish. They're acting like I'm some monster. I almost laughed. Rachel, I said slowly, you scheduled your wedding on my graduation day. She sniffled. So. The word hit like a slap. So. I repeated. Yes, she snapped, her voice suddenly sharp, the tears vanishing like a switch flipped. I'm allowed to have my day. I'm allowed to be celebrated. Why should you get all the attention just because you're walking across some stage? Some stage. Again. Always minimizing. Always erasing. I felt my jaw tighten. Rachel, I said quietly, it's my medical school graduation. And, she shouted, it's not like you're curing cancer. Silence fell between us. I could hear her breathing hard. And in that silence, I realized something. Rachel wasn't panicking because she felt guilty. She was panicking because she was losing control. So I kept my voice calm. I didn't tell anyone not to go to your wedding, I said. Rachel's voice trembled with rage. Yes, you did.
No, iraplia.
I simply told people the truth. She hissed like a snake. Fix this. I blinked. Excuse me? Tell them to come back, she demanded.
Post something.
Tell them you were exaggerating. Tell them you're fine with it. You owe me that. I let out a slow breath. I could feel that old version of me, the obedient Emily, the one who always smoothed things over, trying to rise. And then I crushed her. You're not owed anything, I said. Rachel went silent. I continued, each word deliberate. You said my graduation didn't matter, I said. You said you didn't care. You said you deserved the attention. My voice dropped colder. So enjoy it. Rachel's voice cracked. Emily. I cut her off. No, I said. This is what you wanted. Then I ended the call. The next day, my mom texted me 3 times. Then called. When I answered, she didn't even pretend to be gentle. What did you do? She demanded. I smiled slightly, though she couldn't see it. I invited people to my graduation, I said. Mom's voice sharpened. Your sister is devastated. I held the phone away from my ear for a second because she was nearly shouting. Then I brought it back. And I'm graduating, I said. She's crying, Mom insisted. She can't eat. She's humiliated. I interrupted, calm as ice. Good, I said. A long pause. My mother went quiet in shock. And I realized for the first time in my life, she had no idea who I was anymore. Because I wasn't her obedient daughter. I wasn't the backup child. I wasn't second place.
Not today.
Not ever again. The next 48 hours were the kind of chaos that makes time feel unreal. My phone kept buzzing. Rachel's name, Mom's name, Dad's name. Over and over like a warning siren. I ignored Rachel. I didn't ignore my parents. Not because they deserved it, but because I wanted to hear exactly how far they would go. And they didn't disappoint. My dad called that evening, and the moment I answered, his voice hit me like a slap. What the hell is going on, Emily? I stared at the wall, calm. You tell me, I replied. I mean it, he snapped. Your sister is telling everyone you're ruining her wedding. I laughed, short and bitter. She ruined her own wedding when she chose my graduation date. He cut me off. Enough. You're making the family look bad. There it was. Not you hurt your sister. Not this isn't fair. Not even we messed up. Just, you're embarrassing us. I could almost see him saying it, jaw tight, eyes hard, that familiar disgust on his face whenever I challenged the role they built for me. Dad, I said slowly, I didn't do anything except invite people to my graduation. Don't play innocent, he barked. You knew what would happen. I paused, letting his words settle. You're right, I said quietly. I did. Silence. He was thrown off. I continued, voice steady like I was reading a diagnosis. I knew people would choose the truth over Rachel's tantrum. I knew they would choose something real. His breathing turned heavy. Then he growled, You're acting like you're better than her. I wanted to scream. But instead, I whispered something worse. No, I said. I'm acting like I matter. 2 hours later, my mother showed up at my apartment. She didn't text first.
She didn't ask.
I opened the door, and there she was, Linda Carter in her perfectly pressed jacket, eyes already wet like she'd rehearsed it in the car. Emily, she breathed, like she'd come to save me from myself. I stepped aside, letting her in. The second she entered, she looked around my small place with that familiar expression, half pity, half judgment. You're living like this? She asked softly. I closed the door behind her. It's temporary, I said. She turned toward me dramatically. This is exactly why I'm here, she said. We need to talk. Because this whole thing has gone too far. Too far, I repeated. Yes, she insisted. Rachel is devastated. Your father is furious. Everyone is talking. People are asking questions.
You set the hair.
And Mom blinked like she couldn't comprehend that I wasn't begging for her forgiveness. Then she took a deep breath, lowering her voice into that manipulative, gentle tone. Sweetheart, she said, you know Rachel is sensitive. She feels overlooked sometimes. I laughed in disbelief. Rachel. Overlooked. The girl who couldn't stand not being worshipped. My mother reached for my hand, like we were on the same side. Just post something, she pleaded. Tell everyone the date overlap was a misunderstanding. Tell them you support Rachel and you want them to attend the wedding. Something icy crawled up my spine. So that's why you came, I said. Mom's lips trembled. Emily, please. This is tearing the family apart. I stepped back. No, I said quietly. This is revealing the family. Mom stiffened. Don't talk like that. I held her gaze. You told me she always comes first, I reminded her. You told me I'd always come last. Her eyes flickered. That's not what we meant. It's exactly what you meant. I cut in. You just didn't expect me to accept it. Mom's face flushed. You're being cruel, she whispered. No, I said. I'm being honest. That night, Rachel tried a different approach. She didn't call. She posted. A long emotional paragraph on Facebook, dripping with fake pain. It hurts when your own family turns on you. I never imagined the people I loved would betray me. Sometimes your biggest enemies share your blood. She didn't say my name.
She didn't need to.
She wanted the audience to fill in the blanks. For 10 minutes, I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the comment button. Part of me wanted to type the truth, to expose everything. But then I remembered what I'd learned in the hospital. You don't argue with a disease. You diagnose it. You treat it. So instead of replying, I called my grandmother. Margaret answered on the first ring. Emily, baby? I swallowed hard. Rachel posted something. There was a pause. Then Grandma's voice turned sharp. Oh, she did she? I stared at that post again. And for the first time since this started, I felt something shift. Not anger. Not pain.
Power.
Because Rachel was screaming online. and I was surrounded by people quietly choosing me. Grandma's voice softened. Don't you dare respond to her, she said. Let her embarrass herself. You keep your dignity. I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. Okay, I whispered. Grandma continued, low and deadly calm. And Emily? Yes. I'm coming early, she said. And I'm bringing something for your graduation. A chill went through me. What kind of something? I asked. Grandma's answer was simple. Something, she said, that will remind your parents exactly what they're about to lose. The night before my graduation week began, the knock came at my door. 3 sharp hits. Not polite. Not hesitant. The kind of knock that says open up, not may I come in? I already knew who it was. Still, my heart thumped hard enough to sting behind my ribs as I walked to the door. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. My parents stood in the hallway, and between them, like the star of her own little show, was Rachel. She was dressed like she was walking into a photo shoot. Hair curled. Makeup done. A white sweater that screamed innocence. Todd stood a few feet behind them, hands in his pockets, eyes fixed on the floor like he wished the carpet would swallow him whole. Rachel's cheeks were blotchy from crying, but her eyes were bright, excited, like she finally had the stage she wanted. My mother spoke first, voice trembling with rehearsed emotion. Emily, can we come in? I didn't move. I didn't step aside. I didn't offer a smile. I just looked at them for a long moment and asked, why are you here? My dad's jaw flexed. We need to talk, he said sharply.
No. Iraplia.
You need something. Rachel sniffled loudly. Emily. I turned my head slightly, still keeping my hand on the doorframe like a boundary. Don't, I warned. Rachel's lips parted in fake shock, like she couldn't believe I didn't fall for the performance. Mom forced a laugh. Sweetheart, please. This isn't the time to be cold.
Her.
When exactly was the time? I asked quietly. When you told me I could have my diploma mailed, my mother flinched as if I'd slapped her. Dad sighed like he was exhausted by my existence. Emily, stop being dramatic. Let us in. I considered it for one long second. Then I stepped aside. Not because I wanted them in my home, but because I wanted to look them in the eyes when they tried to destroy me again. They walked in like they owned the place. Rachel went straight to my couch and sat down, like it was her living room. Todd hovered by the door, awkward, caught in the middle, his face pale. Mom stood near my kitchen counter, clutching her purse. Dad didn't sit. He stayed standing, arms crossed, like a judge waiting for a confession. Rachel looked around my apartment with a pout. Wow, she said softly. It's small. I didn't react. I just shut the door. The click sounded final. Then I turned back. So, I said, what do you want? Mom took a deep breath. We're here to fix this, she said quickly. Rachel's wedding, your graduation, everything has spiraled. This has gone too far. I tilted my head. Has it? Rachel's eyes glistened. She clasped her hands together like she was praying. Emily, she whispered, I can't believe you'd do this to me. I laughed once, without humor. You mean I can't believe I invited people to my graduation? I asked. Rachel's face twisted. You're making everyone choose, she cried. You're humiliating me. Dad snapped, pointing at me. She's right. I stared at him. He continued, voice rising like thunder. Your sister is heartbroken. She can't sleep. She can't eat. Everyone is judging her, because of you. Because of me. Not because she deliberately planned her wedding on my graduation day. Not because my parents enabled it. Because of me. My mother jumped in, voice syrupy again. Honey, just listen, she begged. We just need you to make a post. A simple post. Tell everyone you support Rachel and you want them to come to her wedding. I blinked slowly. That's why you're here, I said. Rachel nodded quickly, tears falling like she was collecting them.
Yes. Just tell them, she sobbed.
You can still have your graduation. You can still do your ceremony. But I need my day back. My lungs felt tight. I looked at her, really looked. Rachel wasn't sorry. Rachel wasn't ashamed. She was furious that the spotlight slipped from her hands. I turned to Todd. And you? I asked, voice sharp. What do you think? Todd's head jerked up like he'd been slapped with a question. He glanced at Rachel, then at my dad, then at my mom. His voice came out low and tired. I think he started swallowing. I think it was wrong to pick May 15th. Rachel's head snapped toward him. Todd. He flinched, but continued anyway, eyes flicking to me in apology. I told her, he murmured. I told her it wasn't a good idea. Rachel's face went red. You're betraying me too? She screamed. Mom rushed toward Rachel. Honey, calm down. Dad glared at Todd like Todd had committed a crime. But Todd didn't move. He just stood there, shoulders slumped, like a man who'd been drowning for years. Rachel turned back to me, eyes wild. I didn't think people would actually choose you, she spat. The room went silent. Even my mother froze. My father's face tightened. And I felt it. That one sentence. That confession. It was so honest it felt like blood. Rachel didn't think I mattered enough to be chosen. She didn't think my graduation mattered enough to compete. She assumed I would fold. Like always. I took a step closer. What did you say? I asked softly. Rachel swallowed, then lifted her chin like she was proud. I said, she repeated louder. I didn't think people would choose you. I thought they'd choose me. Because they always do. Something snapped inside my chest. A soundless break, like a bone cracking clean. I turned slowly to my parents, and my voice came out steady, deadly calm. Did you hear that? Mom's lips trembled. Dad's face went stiff. Rachel smirked like she'd won. And suddenly, I saw the entire pattern of my life in one clear line. Every birthday where Rachel opened my gifts. Every holiday where Rachel's tantrum ruined dinner. Every accomplishment of mine that got a polite clap before the conversation returned to Rachel. Every time I needed help and Mom said, "You're strong, you can handle it." Every time Dad told me, "Stop being dramatic." Rachel didn't become this on her own. They built her. And they buried me beneath her. I let out a breath. Then I spoke. Not yelling. Not screaming. Worse. Truth. Do you know what the funniest part is? I said quietly. Rachel rolled her eyes. Oh God. I cut her off. No. I said, eyes locked on my parents. The funniest part is that you came here thinking you could still control me. Dad's voice hardened. Emily. I stepped closer, my hands shaking now. 8 years, I said, voice rising. 8 years. I worked myself into the ground. I missed holidays. I missed birthdays. I missed vacations. I slept in the library. I cried in stairwells. I watched patients die and then went home and studied like I didn't have a soul. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I didn't stop. And when I finally got to the finish line, I continued breathing hard. When I finally said, "Please just show up," you told me I could have my diploma mailed. Dad slammed his palm against my counter. That's enough. No, I snapped back. It's not enough. It was never enough for you. Rachel stood up, shouting over me. You think you're the only one who struggles? I have 3 kids. I turned to her so fast she flinched. And I have been parenting myself since I was 12, I said, voice shaking. Because you were always the baby, the princess, the fragile one. Rachel's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I turned back to my parents again, tears burning now. You didn't choose her wedding, I said. You chose her your whole lives. Over and over. You fed her ego and starved my heart. Mom sobbed. Emily, we love you. I laughed bitterly. You love me when I'm quiet, I said. You love me when I sacrifice. You love me when I lose so she can win. Dad's face turned purple. I'm your father, he roared. You will not speak to us like that. I stepped forward until we were only feet apart. Then I said it. The sentence that left no room for negotiation. Then stop treating me like your backup daughter. Silence. I could hear my own breathing. Rachel's mascara was running. Mom's shoulders shook. Todd stared at the floor, eyes glossy. My dad's hands trembled with rage. I swallowed, feeling my voice turn quiet again. You told me Rachel always comes first, I said. And I'll always come last. I nodded slowly. Fine, I said again. But this time my voice wasn't soft. It was steel. Keep choosing her, I continued. But you don't get to have me too. You don't get my photos. You don't get my pride. You don't get to pretend you raised me into a doctor. Mom choked out my name. I ignored her. If you want Rachel, I said, then take her. All of her. The tantrums. The drama. The endless hunger for attention. I pointed toward the door. And get out of my home. Rachel stared at me like I'd slapped her. You're kicking us out? She whispered, horrified. Yes, I said simply. I am. Dad stepped forward, furious. Emily. I raised my hand. Don't, I warned, voice low. You already chose. My dad froze. For once in his life, he didn't know what to say. My mother started crying harder. Rachel looked like she couldn't breathe. Todd quietly opened the door. I watched them walk out one by one. Mom last. She paused in the doorway and looked back at me with a broken voice. You're really doing this?
He's still here.
And this time, I didn't soften. Yes, I said. I'm really doing this. I closed the door. And the moment it clicked shut, the apartment shook with silence. I slid down against the door slowly, my body trembling, breath coming in short bursts. I pressed my hand over my mouth, not to hold back tears, but to hold back the sound of my own heart finally breaking free. Because I knew something now. My parents had made me last my whole life. But I had just made myself first. The morning of May 15th arrived like the world didn't care that my family had shattered. Sunlight poured through my blinds, warm and golden, stretching across my apartment floor like a quiet blessing. For a moment, I lay still in bed, listening to my own breathing, waiting for the familiar heavy feeling to crush me again. But it didn't. The weight was gone. In its place was something sharper, cleaner. Relief. I rolled over and stared at my graduation gown hanging from the closet door. The dark blue fabric looked almost regal, like it belonged to someone who had earned every inch of it. I sat up slowly and whispered to myself, "You made it. Not we. Not my family. Just me." I showered, took my time with my hair, and did my makeup the way I never had during medical school. Not because I needed to look perfect for anyone else, but because I wanted to look in the mirror and see the woman I had fought to become. My phone buzzed. "Delilah, I'm outside. Bonus sister privileges. Hurry up." I smiled. An actual smile that didn't hurt. When I opened my door, she stood there holding 2 coffees and a small gift bag. "Dr. Emily Carter," she announced dramatically, like she was presenting me to the world. I laughed softly. "Not yet." Delilah stepped inside, glanced at my gown, and her eyes softened. "Yes," she said firmly. "Today." She handed me the coffee, then pulled me into a hug that lingered. I didn't realize how badly I needed that until my throat tightened. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded, then shook my head, then laughed again, because nothing made sense. Delilah squeezed my hand. "You don't have to be okay," she said. "You just have to walk across that stage." We drove to campus with the windows down. My gown lay folded carefully in the back seat like something fragile and sacred. The parking lot was already filling with families carrying flowers and balloons, parents in dress clothes, kids running around in excitement. For a split second, the old ache rose. I pictured my mother fixing her hair, my father adjusting his tie, them smiling for pictures like proud parents. Then the image dissolved, because it wasn't real. Not anymore. Delilah parked, and as soon as we stepped out of the car, I heard someone call my name. "Emily." I turned and froze. My grandmother was walking toward me in a purple dress, her hair perfectly styled, her eyes bright with a pride so fierce it made my chest burn. Beside her was Uncle James, wearing a suit like he was attending a gala, not a graduation. Behind them, more faces. Aunt Lisa, cousins, family friends. And then I saw something I didn't expect. Todd's parents. Todd's mom approached me with tears in her eyes and pulled me into a hug. "I'm sorry," she whispered against my hair. "I'm so sorry your mother isn't here. But you deserve to be celebrated." My eyes stung immediately. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I just nodded, blinking fast. Then Grandma took my face in both hands. "You look beautiful," she said. "And you look strong." I swallowed. "I don't feel strong." Grandma's smile sharpened. "That's how you know it's real," she replied. Inside the auditorium, the lights were bright and the air smelled like perfume, flowers, and anticipation. Graduates lined up backstage in blue gowns and caps, whispering to each other nervously. When the music started and we began filing into the rows, my heart pounded so hard I thought I might vomit. I forced myself to look into the audience. And there they were.
2 full rows of people who chose me.
My grandmother in the front row, sitting tall like a queen. Delilah's family waving wildly. Even a few hospital nurses in scrubs, smiling like they were proud of me too. Then I saw it. 2 empty seats. The ones I had saved for my parents. The emptiness didn't crush me like I expected. It simply confirmed the truth. They made their choice. And so did I. When my name was called, my legs moved before my fear could catch up. I stepped onto the stage. The applause hit like thunder. And in that roar, something inside me healed, just enough. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't begging to be loved. I was finally receiving it. After the ceremony, everything moved like a dream. People swarmed around me outside the auditorium. Hugs, flowers, photos, laughter. Delilah's little sister insisted on taking doctor pictures from every angle. My aunt cried the entire time like she'd been waiting years to witness this moment. Uncle James kept adjusting my cap like it was a crown. And Grandma stood beside me like she belonged there. Like she had claimed her place in my story the way my parents never did. We took so many photos my cheeks started to ache from smiling. And yet, in the middle of all that warmth, my phone felt heavy in my purse, like a ticking bomb. At dinner that night, it finally went off. I checked my phone once, between bites of pasta, and saw the notifications stacked like a flood. "Mom, we're so proud of you. Send pics.
Dad, congrats.
We love you. Call me when you can." And then, Rachel. A long message. So long it filled my entire screen like a confession letter. I opened it carefully, almost amused by how predictable she was. Emily, I didn't realize how important this was to you. I've been so stressed with the wedding and everything spiraled. You don't understand what it's like having 3 kids and trying to make something special for once. I felt like no one cared about me. I felt overlooked. I just wanted one day that was mine. 3 paragraphs of excuses. Half an apology buried like a bone under a pile of excuses. I stared at it for a long moment. Then I typed back only one line. I appreciate the apology. I hope you're doing well.
No comfort.
No forgiveness speech. No emotional handholding. Just distance. I put my phone back in my purse and lifted my glass when Christina, Delilah's mom, stood to make a toast. She spoke about dedication. Resilience. About how she'd watched me push forward even when I was exhausted. How she'd seen me show up again and again. And as I listened, I realized something almost shocking. I wasn't sad my parents weren't there. Not tonight. Tonight, I was surrounded by people who actually loved me. People who didn't need to be begged. People who didn't treat me like the strong one they could neglect. When everyone clinked glasses, my grandmother squeezed my hand under the table. Then she stood. The entire room quieted instantly. Grandma Margaret didn't demand attention. She commanded it. I've been thinking a lot about family, she began, voice calm but powerful. About what it means. Her eyes swept the room slowly. Family isn't blood, she continued. Family is who shows up, who stays, who supports you when it matters. My throat tightened. Grandma looked directly at me. Emily has shown up for this family her whole life, she said. And today we showed up for her. People nodded, murmuring in agreement. Then Grandma's voice sharpened like the tip of a knife. And since I've learned who values family and who only values appearances, I've decided to update my will. The room went still. I felt the air change. Grandma continued, steady and unshaking. My house, she said, will go to Emily. A quiet gasp rippled through the table. My uncle smiled slowly. I froze, eyes wide. Grandma, I whispered. She patted my shoulder. You earned it, she said simply. And everyone here knows it. I swallowed hard, blinking fast. In that moment, I understood something Rachel never would. The spotlight wasn't the prize. Respect was. And Rachel had just lost it forever. Life didn't magically become perfect after graduation. It became clear. 2 weeks later, I moved into a small apartment closer to the hospital, one I could actually afford now, thanks to Grandma Margaret. The place was tiny, but it was mine. Quiet.
Clean. Safe.
It felt like the first space in my life where no one could demand I shrink myself. Residency hit like a tidal wave. 5 a.m. mornings. Midnight rounds. Scrubs that smelled like antiseptic and adrenaline. Some days, I barely remembered to eat. But strangely, the exhaustion felt different now. It was mine. Not the kind of exhaustion that comes from begging for love. The kind that comes from building a life. On my first overnight shift, I sat in the resident lounge with 2 other new doctors, all of us half dead from fatigue. Someone joked about families not understanding how hard this was. And before I could stop myself, I told them the truth, how my parents planned my sister's wedding on my graduation day. They didn't look shocked. They nodded. One of them said quietly, "Yeah, family jealousy gets ugly when you start winning." That sentence stayed with me, because it was true. Rachel didn't hate me. She hated what my success reflected back at her. 3 weeks after graduation, my mom called again. This time, her voice sounded careful, like she finally understood I could hang up. She asked if we could meet for dinner. I agreed. We met at a chain restaurant halfway between the hospital and their house. When I walked in, my parents were already sitting in a booth. My dad stood up like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to hug me anymore. He wasn't. We talked about small things until my mom finally sighed and said, "Emily, we're sorry." No long speech. No excuses at first. Just those 2 words. I nodded slowly. "I forgive you," I said. My mother's face lit up with relief, until I continued. "But our relationship is different now." Her smile froze. "I needed parents who showed up," I said calmly. "Not parents who acted proud only when it looked good. You chose Rachel. That was your right." Dad lowered his eyes. "And now," I added, "I'm choosing myself." My mom cried. My dad stayed silent. They didn't argue this time. Because they couldn't. They had already spent 8 years teaching me what I meant to them. I was simply finally believing them. Rachel texted a month later, asking to meet for coffee. I almost said no. But I went. She looked tired, real tired. Not dramatic tired. Human tired. I was jealous, she admitted, staring into her cup. When everyone chose you, I felt like I'd wasted my life. She didn't fully apologize. Rachel never did anything fully. But for the first time, she said something honest. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I met her eyes. I didn't either, I said quietly. But I did. Because the truth was simple. They told me I would always come last. And I replied, fine. Not because I accepted it, but because I decided I'd never compete for their love again. I didn't need to be first in their eyes. I just needed to stop being last in my own.